I floated on a piece of roof for 3 days, watching my neighborhood disappear underwater. From up there, I saw things humans were never meant to see. I watched their homes sink like drowning ships. I saw their memories float away. Family photos, children's toys, the rocking chair where Grandpa used to sit. I witnessed how nature can erase an entire lifetime in just a few hours. But what I couldn't see from that piece of roof was hope. That I had to learn to find later, when strangers became family, and I discovered that sometimes the worst storms bring us exactly where we need to be. I am Storm, though for 3 years I was Max, a German Shepherd mix living with the Rodriguez family on Maple Street in Cedar Grove, Louisiana. Maria and Carlos had rescued me as a puppy. Their daughter Elena, 8 years old, had begged for a dog for 2 years straight. "He looks like he's wearing a tuxedo," Elena had giggled, pointing at my black and tan markings. "But his ears are too big for his head." Our house sat 3 blocks from the levee, a modest blue cottage with a wraparound porch where Carlos would sit every evening, drinking sweet tea and teaching me to catch tennis balls. Maria tended her garden, tomatoes, peppers, herbs that made the whole yard smell like heaven. Elena would practice violin on the porch swing while I lay at her feet. Carlos worked construction, rebuilding homes that previous storms had damaged. "This is hurricane country, Max," he'd tell me as we watched weather reports. "But our family has lived through Andrew, Katrina, Gustav. We know how to prepare." And they did prepare. Every hurricane season, they kept supplies ready. Water, batteries, canned food, plywood for windows. I had my own emergency kit. Extra leash, medical records, favorite toy. "If we evacuate, Max comes with us," Maria always said. "Family doesn't get left behind." For 3 years, we weathered minor storms together. Power outages where we played board games by candlelight. Flooded streets where Carlos carried Elena piggyback while I splashed alongside them. Each time, we came home together, cleaned up together, rebuilt together. I understood my role in this family. I was Elena's homework companion, Carlos's jogging partner, Maria's garden assistant. I was their alarm system, their entertainment, their constant presence. Cedar Grove wasn't wealthy, but it was rich in ways that mattered. When someone's roof leaked, neighbors fixed it. When Mrs. Tran's husband died, the whole block brought casseroles. When the Johnsons' baby was born, everyone took turns walking their older dog. Hurricane season was just part of life, like summer heat and Mardi Gras. We respected it, prepared for it, but we didn't live in fear of it. Until Hurricane Delilah changed everything. Then one day in late September, the forecast changed from concerning to catastrophic. Category 4, the weatherman said, his voice tight with worry. Potentially catastrophic storm surge. Mandatory evacuation for all areas within 10 miles of the coast. I watched Carlos pace the living room, phone pressed to his ear. "Mama, you have to leave. The shelter won't take pets, but we'll figure something out." Elena sat beside me, arms around my neck. "Max is coming with us, right?" she kept asking. "We're not leaving Max." But complications multiplied like storm clouds. Carlos's mother refused to evacuate. Maria's sister went into early labor in Baton Rouge. The pet-friendly shelters were full or already damaged by the storm's outer bands. "We'll take him to the boarding place on Highway 90, Carlos decided. "It's on high ground, but when we arrived at Bayou Pet Resort, knee-deep water already covered their parking lot." "I'm sorry," the owner said, loading his own dogs into a pickup truck. The storm surge predictions got worse. "I'm evacuating too. Time was running out." Carlos stood in the rain, calling every contact he had. "There's space at a shelter in Mississippi," he finally announced. "But no pets. They're saying animals can stay at the Civic Center." But I saw the look that passed between Maria and Carlos. The Civic Center was in the flood zone. One story, near the river. A place for animals whose families had run out of options. Elena started crying. "No, we don't leave Max. I don't care about the storm. I'm not going without Max." But nature doesn't negotiate with 8-year-old girls. As Carlos loaded me into the truck, Elena pressed her face against mine. "I'll come back for you," she whispered. "I promise, Max. I promise I'll find you." The Civic Center was chaos. Hundreds of dogs, cats, birds, even a few goats, all left by families who had no choice. Volunteers tried to organize the confusion. Name tags, medical information, contact numbers for when the storm passed. "Don't worry, boy," said Janet, the volunteer who settled me into a cage. "Your family will be back in a few days." They always come back. But Delilah had other plans. The storm hit at 2 a.m. on Tuesday. I had lived through hurricanes before, but this was different. The wind didn't just howl, it screamed. The building shook like it was trying to tear itself from its foundation. By dawn, water was seeping under the doors. By noon, it was ankle-deep throughout the building. By evening, Janet and the other volunteers were making impossible decisions. "The boats can only take so many," she said, her voice breaking. "The smaller animals first. We'll come back." But the boats didn't come back. The water rose faster than anyone had predicted. The levee had failed. I found myself swimming in what used to be the Civic Center, toward a small window near the roof. Outside, the world had become an ocean. Street signs poked up like periscopes. Car roofs formed small islands. That's when I saw it, a piece of metal roofing, floating past the window. Without thinking, I jumped. For 3 days, that became my world. 6 feet of corrugated metal, barely large enough for my body, spinning slowly in the current that used to be my neighborhood. I couldn't see land in any direction, just water, debris, and the occasional helicopter too far away to notice one dog on one piece of metal. I learned things during those 3 days that no animal should have to learn. I learned that thirst is worse than hunger. I learned that hope is a choice you have to make every hour, sometimes every minute. I learned that the sound of silence, when the wind finally stops, can be more terrifying than the storm itself. On the second day, I floated past what might have been my neighborhood. It was hard to tell. All the landmarks were gone, but I saw a blue roof that might have been ours, completely underwater except for the peak. I barked until my throat was raw, but no one answered. On the third day, I gave up trying to paddle toward anything. I just held on and let the current decide. That's when I learned the hardest lesson. Sometimes survival means surrendering control. That's when I saw them, 2 figures in a small motorboat, moving slowly through what used to be a residential street. "There, Jim, there's something on that piece of metal." Sarah's voice cut through my delirium like a lifeline. I was so dehydrated I could barely lift my head, but I managed one weak bark. "It's a dog! Oh my God, it's alive!" They pulled alongside my raft, and strong hands lifted me into their boat. I was too weak to be afraid as Sarah wrapped me in a blanket and held me against her chest. "You're okay now," she whispered, her tears dropping onto my matted fur. "You're safe. We've got you." At the rescue staging area, I saw the scope of the disaster. Hundreds of boats coming and going. Families holding photographs, calling out names of missing loved ones. Children crying for lost pets. Parents crying for lost children. The veterinarian who examined me was gentle. Dehydrated, exhausted, some cuts and scrapes, but he's a fighter, she pronounced. Few more hours out there, and it would have been a different story. They photographed me, documented my description, added me to the database of found pets. Someone's looking for you, the volunteer assured me. Families always come back for their pets. But days passed, then weeks. The temporary shelter filled with rescued pets whose families were scattered across multiple states, living in FEMA trailers, trying to rebuild lives that had been washed away. I waited. Every day, I watched families come through, hoping to see Elena's face, to hear Carlos call my name. But I wasn't ready for other families. I was waiting for my family. That's when Sarah started visiting. She was the woman who had pulled me from the water, and she came every few days just to sit with me, not to adopt. She and Jim were disaster volunteers from 3 states away. But something about our connection on that boat had affected her too. I keep thinking about you out there, she'd tell me. 3 days alone. You could have given up, but you didn't. Through Sarah, I learned their story. She and Jim had lost their own dog, Bear, to cancer just 2 months before the hurricane. They'd come to Louisiana to help because Sarah said, "We needed to do something with our grief besides just carry it around. Jim doesn't know I'm here," she confided during one visit. "He thinks I'm getting too attached. But you remind me of Bear. Not how you look, but how you survived." Bear fought cancer for 2 years. He never gave up either. 3 weeks after the rescue, Sarah brought Jim with her. "This is him," she said simply. "This is the dog from the roof." Jim sat outside my kennel for a long time, just watching me. Finally, he spoke. "Sarah thinks you need us as much as we need you." The breakthrough came the day Sarah brought a photo. "This was Bear," she said, showing me a picture of a black lab mix. "He died on my birthday. Worst birthday of my life. But looking at you now, I think maybe he sent us to find you." That evening, Jim joined us. "We lost our house too," he said quietly. "Different kind of storm, financial. Medical bills. But we know what it's like to start over." As I sat between them in that concrete kennel, I realized something profound. My family might never come back through that door. The Rodriguez family might be scattered, rebuilding their lives in places I couldn't reach. But these 2 humans who had literally pulled me from drowning waters, they were offering me something precious. Not a replacement for what I'd lost, but a new beginning built on mutual understanding of loss. That night, for the first time since the hurricane, I slept without listening for Elena's voice. Humans forget that love doesn't always arrive the way we expect it to. They think healing should be linear, that moving forward means forgetting what came before. They don't realize that sometimes the deepest love grows from shared understanding of loss, that sometimes the families we choose are just as real as the ones we're born into. Sarah and Jim took me home to Tennessee, where I learned that life after disaster doesn't mean pretending the disaster never happened. Their house had photos of Bear everywhere, and they talked about him often, not with sadness, but with gratitude. They taught me that honoring what we've lost doesn't mean we can't embrace what we found. I never saw Elena or Carlos or Maria again, but through Sarah's connections, I learned that they had survived, that they'd moved to Houston to stay with relatives. Sarah helped them understand that I was safe, loved, cared for. In a letter Elena wrote to me, Sarah read it aloud. She said, "I hope your new family loves you as much as we did." They still called me Max in that letter, but I am Storm now, named for the disaster that broke me and the strength that rebuilt me. Today, 5 years later, I work with Sarah and Jim as a disaster response volunteer. When hurricanes hit, when floods rise, we travel to help with rescue efforts. My job is simple. I find the animals that others might miss. I understand their terror because I've lived it. I know the hiding places because I've used them. But my most important work happens in the shelters afterward, with the rescued animals waiting for families who may never come. I lie beside the newcomers during their first terrifying nights. I show them that food will come regularly, that not all humans will hurt them, that survival is possible even when everything familiar has been washed away. Some of the animals I comfort go back to their original families. Others, like me, find new families who understand that love doesn't diminish when it's shared. All of them learn the lesson that took me months to understand. Home isn't a place that can be destroyed by storms. Home is the feeling of being wanted, protected, valued. The Rodriguez family loved me completely, and that love didn't disappear when the hurricane separated us. Sarah and Jim love me completely too, and that love doesn't diminish the love that came before. Hearts are not houses that can only hold one family at a time. Hearts are like the sky, vast enough to contain all the love we've ever received and all the love we have yet to give. Every rescue teaches me this truth. Disaster doesn't discriminate, but neither does love. In the worst moments of human crisis, when everything material has been swept away, people risk their lives to save strangers. They open their homes to displaced families. They spend their weekends pulling frightened animals from floodwaters. This is what I want humans to remember. You are more resilient than you know. You can lose everything material and still find reasons to hope, still find ways to help others, still discover that love can grow in the spaces that loss creates. Sometimes disaster doesn't destroy us. Sometimes it carries us exactly where we need to be. Thank you for following Storm's incredible journey with us today. If this story touched your heart, we'd be grateful if you'd subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell.